Many of these locations are historically black neighborhoods that have grown safer and are now experiencing a surge in newcomers. Just hearing that sentence makes folks uneasy. However, the data supports it. The rate of crime is declining. Once written-off neighborhoods are stabilizing, and the demand for housing is rapidly increasing. However, the majority of individuals are unaware of the location or the reason behind this phenomenon. 10 states are subtly becoming safer and more appealing places to live, according to this investigative study. We are examining the data. Most relocation lists don't mention it. Trends in violent crime, decreases in property crime, pressure from rising living expenses, and other silent forces are changing the current demographics of Americans. This isn't a coincidence, and it's not hype either. Safety alters behavior, which in turn alters demand, which in turn alters everything. Follow me as I count down to see which states are subtly moving up the rankings and why it could be more important to arrive early than you might think. Let's get started. Like the video and subscribe to Brian's Virtual Travel. Florida is number 10. Retirement is no longer the only reason to visit Florida. You're already behind the curve if you're still thinking about early bird dinners and golf carts. It's not the beaches that are subtly altering Florida. It's ownership, security, and safety in previously disregarded areas. Black communities are experiencing long overdue infrastructural investment, improved policing tactics, and actual drops in violent crime. And when safety gets better, people are interested. There are always towns and cities to observe. Riviera Beach, Lauderhill, and Maya. The headlines aren't flashy. These are changes in patterns. Miramar has become a magnet for professionals who want South Florida access without South Florida chaos. Lauderhill, a neighborhood well known for its high rate of black house ownership, has experienced a decline in crime as demand subtly increases. Once written off completely, Riviera Beach is currently receiving attention due to safety upgrades colliding with the area's restricted housing supply. The words of a longtime Miramar homeowner eloquently capture it. This is where people used to drive by. They are now pausing, posing queries, and extending offers. And everything changes at that point. According to Florida's crime statistics, despite faster population growth, violent and property crime have decreased in many mid-sized cities and suburbs during the previous 10 years. Translation: the influx of new residents did not make these neighborhoods safer. Because it became safer, people moved in. A resident of Lauderhill told a nearby newspaper, "We stayed when others left. Now everybody's acting like they just discovered us." That line hits because it's true. Riviera Beach tells a similar story. Targeted redevelopment, community-led safety initiatives, and proximity to coastal job centers have turned undesirable into underpriced. And when affordability meets safety in Florida, one of the most migrated to states in America, competition is inevitable. Here's the uncomfortable part. When safety rises, who benefits becomes the real question. As one real estate analyst bluntly put it, crime drops first, prices rise second. Displacement debates come last. Florida is number 10 on this list, not because the shift is finished, but because it's still early. The smart money watches safety trends, not headlines. And in these communities, the data is speaking loud, even if the conversation stays quiet. Number 9, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of those states people think they understand until they actually look at the numbers. Because while the spotlight stays glued to big legacy cities, the real story is happening just outside the frame in places quietly benefiting from declining crime and overflow migration. This isn't about hype. It's about proximity, pressure, and patterns. Cities and towns to watch. Upper Darby, Chester, West Philadelphia. Here's what's happening. Crime rates in many Pennsylvania secondary cities have trended downward over the past decade. while housing costs in nearby major metros have exploded. When safety improves and affordability disappears elsewhere, people start looking sideways. Not far away, just far enough. Upper Darby is a perfect example. Long known for its diversity and working to middle-class black communities. Seeing renewed interest as violent crime stabilizes and transit access keeps it tightly connected to Philly. One local renter put it bluntly, "I wanted city access without city prices." This was the compromise that actually worked. Chester tells a deeper, more uncomfortable story. For years, it was treated as a place to avoid, but targeted investment, community-led safety initiatives, and proximity to major job corridors have changed the math. Crime isn't gone. But it's lower, and that's enough to shift perception. A longtime resident told a local paper, "They used to call this a lost cause. Now people keep asking if it's up and coming." Quote. That phrase "up and coming" usually shows up right before demand spikes. Then there's West Philadelphia, where the shift is impossible to ignore. As crime trends improve block by block and prices surge closer to the city core, buyers and renters priced out of hot neighborhoods start expanding their maps. And once that happens, competition follows fast. A Philadelphia area real estate agent summed it up perfectly. When safety stabilizes and inventory is tight, people stop waiting for perfect. They move where the numbers make sense. And that's the key word here, numbers. Pennsylvania's appeal right now isn't flash, it's math. Safer neighborhoods plus metro access plus comparatively lower housing costs equal rising demand. Not overnight, quietly, relentlessly, Pennsylvania lands at number 9 because this shift is still unfolding. But make no mistake, it's already in motion. And the people paying attention now won't be the ones asking later, "How did I miss this?" Number 8, Michigan. Michigan is the state people stopped watching, and that's exactly why it belongs on this list. While everyone else chased the Sunbelt Belt, Michigan's recovery cities were quietly doing something radical. Getting safer, stabilizing, and becoming desirable again. Not loud, not flashy, just effective cities and towns to watch. Southfield, Oak Park, West Grand Rapids. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Michigan didn't rebound because outsiders rushed in first. These places rebounded because black middle-class communities held the line through disinvestment, bad press, and decades of being overlooked. Now that violent crime is trending down and job centers are pulling people back, attention is following stability. Southfield is the blueprint. Long anchored by black professionals, strong home ownership, and access to major employment corridors, the city has seen sustained reductions in violent crime over the past decade. A Southfield homeowner put it simply, nothing changed overnight. As safety improved and the cost of the surrounding areas increased, Oak Park suddenly began to appear in conversations it had never been invited to before. One longtime resident joked, "They used to ask why I lived here." Quote. Oak Park tells a similar story, only quieter, smaller, tighter-knit, and frequently ignored, but it benefits from its location and consistency. They now inquire as to how I entered. Shifts announce themselves in this way. Then there is West Grand Rapids, where neighborhoods that were previously thought to be too dangerous have seen a decrease in crime, an acceleration of construction, and an increase in demand. Buyers begin to reevaluate what acceptable actually means as prices increase in the downtown area. Spoiler alert, access plus safety generally prevails. One local housing analyst put it simply. People lose interest in past reputations when violent crime declines and employment remains stable. Additionally, Michigan has a lot of outdated reputations that don't align with the data. The larger picture is shown here. Reviving Michigan is not the goal of its rehabilitation. It has to do with rediscovering. Stable black suburbs close to employment hubs are acting as pressure points for quality of life, safety, and affordability. They became too costly to ignore the rest of the market, not because they changed who they were. Michigan sits at number 8 because the shift is real, measurable, and still early. The demand and crime rates have changed, and those who are paying attention now will not be shocked when everyone else acts as though this was always clear. Tennessee is number 7. Some areas of Tennessee are booming, but not all of it is. Additionally, those that are rising are doing it in a low-key manner. Infrastructure is getting better, crime is decreasing, and people's interests are emerging before the news. This has nothing to do with excitement and neon signs. It concerns neighborhoods that people had disregarded but are now reconsidering because to changes in the math. Villages and cities to observe. South Memphis, Fraser, Chattanooga. One of the best examples of how perception falls short of reality is South Memphis. While violent crime hasn't completely disappeared, it has decreased in certain areas. Infrastructure improvements have been postponed for a long time, but community-led safety measures are finally gaining traction. Block by block, targeted redevelopment, road improvements, and schools are altering daily life. People think nothing's changed, but they don't live here anymore. We do. Quote. Fraser's story is even more incisive. A longtime resident told a local reporter. It was slang for, "don't move there," for years. Fraser began drawing purchasers who weren't looking for deals. Meanwhile, as crime patterns improved and surrounding neighborhoods became exorbitantly expensive, they were searching for possibilities. To put it simply, I couldn't afford what was hot. I bought what was getting better. Quote. That statement sums up half of the current American real estate market. Then there is the refined contrast of Chattanooga. Chattanooga, which is frequently referred to as a comeback city, has combined trends of decreasing crime with obvious investments in public areas, employment opportunities, and transportation. Chattanooga emerged as a viable option for those seeking safety, walkability, and a future free from financial constraints as Nashville's costs skyrocketed. A relocation specialist put it succinctly. It was exciting in Nashville. The word here is sustainability, and Chattanooga seems sustainable. The safety gains in Tennessee are not a coincidence. They are the outcome of improved policing tactics, infrastructure funding, and communities that remained resilient when investment dried up. Demand increases as property crime decreases and violent crime levels in specific locations level off. Consistently, but not loudly. This is the unsettling reality. Buyers who look ahead are always superior to those who look cheap. It was best expressed by a regional housing analyst. To be safe, the first wave moves. For value, the second wave moves. The third wave merely gripes about costs. Since the shift is indisputable but still misinterpreted, Tennessee comes in at number 7. Trendiness isn't the reason these places are flourishing. Safety altered the equation, which is why they are increasing. Virginia is number 6. Virginia is situated at the perilous nexus of stability, safety, and proximity. Risky since prices don't wait for others to notice. Virginia's historically black communities have been subtly changing their reputations with something far more convincing than marketing, while more ostentatious states attract notice. Reductions in crime supported by actual funding. Additionally, perception begins to give way to facts when commuters can still reach significant work hubs and safety improves. Villages and cities to observe. Petersburg, Port South, and South Richmond. The best illustration of how tales become mired in the past is Petersburg. It was used as a shorthand for avoid for many years, but in recent years, there have been quantifiable decreases in violent crime, targeted rehabilitation, and state-backed infrastructure funding that have finally made an impression. A local outlet quoted a lifetime resident as saying, "We didn't suddenly change. The numbers did, and people are just now catching up." Quote. South Richmond has a similar narrative, but one that is more vocal. Buyers began doing what they normally do, searching for safety without giving up access, as violence decreased in a number of neighborhoods and redevelopment slowly spread outside the city center. The midway medium, as one new homeowner put it, I wanted city energy without city chaos. And that's where demand really takes up. Of the three, Port South may be the most misinterpreted. It benefits from initiatives to reduce crime, port-related economic activity, and commuter access to major employment hubs after being completely disregarded. As safety leveled off, spreadsheet operators, rather than trend-spurring enthusiasts, began to show interest. A regional planner put it bluntly, when crime drops and commute times stay reasonable, the market recalibrates fast. Quote, Virginia's advantage is structural. These cities don't require reinvention because of state investment, easy access to transit, and their close proximity to significant metro economies. They must be acknowledged. And acknowledgement is never early. This is the bit that nobody enjoys saying aloud. The arrival of outsiders did not make these communities safer. They grew safer, so outsiders came. The difficult years were absorbed by long-time black residents. Now that the advantages are at last apparent, everyone is learning about Virginia. It was succinctly put by a housing analyst. Virginia tightens rather than booms. And markets that are getting tighter don't provide second chances. Virginia earns the number 6 spot because the shift is real, measurable, and accelerating. Reductions in crime altered the calculations. Stability accomplished the rest, and proximity sealed the deal. Wait till we reach the states where the shift is already unavoidable if this is what a silent metamorphosis at number 6 looks like. The countdown is halfway over. For more educational information, please hit the like button, subscribe to Virtual Travel by Brian, and turn on the notification bell if you are enjoying the video thus far. Let's resume. Ohio is number 5. People tend to undervalue Ohio, which is why its resurgent cities are changing the course of events while no one is looking. While the national discourse focuses on coastal disorder and Sunby Belt hype, Ohio's urban neighborhoods have been subtly making significant progress in making their neighborhoods safer and more affordable. That combination is not ignored for very long. Villages and cities to observe: Endale, Euclid, and South Columbus. Euclid is situated in the center of Ohio's peaceful turnaround and directly on the shore of Lake Erie. When compared to its worst years, violent crime has decreased. Longtime black homeowners who persevered through the difficult cycles are now observing outsiders circle, despite the fact that home values and buyer interest have been continuously increasing. The figures don't match the reputation in South Columbus, either. One Euclid resident told a local station, "They used to ask why I never left. Now they're asking if I'm selling." Quote, although crime hasn't completely disappeared, it has decreased sufficiently to influence behavior. Buyers priced out of trendier. Columbus neighborhoods are being drawn in by advances in housing affordability, employment accessibility, and infrastructure. A first-time customer stated it plainly. Popular things were out of my price range. I purchased what was getting better. The entire recovery of Ohio may be explained in that line. One of the best illustrations of perceptual lag may be found in Avonale in Cincinnati. Long disregarded, historically black, and culturally diverse, Avonale has experienced a drop in violent crime as well as planned revitalization and a resurgence in housing interest. Avondale suddenly makes sense to folks who wouldn't have previously crossed the street, much less considered relocating there, while prices in the surrounding areas skyrocket. It was best expressed by a local community leader. When no one wanted us, we were here. Everyone wants to know the place now. Ohio's appeal right now isn't flash, it's function. Reduced violent crime, affordable housing, and employment opportunities combine to establish a combination that purchasers cannot ignore indefinitely. Additionally, the combination of affordability and safety becomes irresistible when costs rise in the nation's major cities. In a quiet, sarcastic way, a local real estate analyst summed it perfectly. Ohio didn't transform all at once. It simply became too costly throughout the rest of the country. That's the reality. The majority of lists will not mention aloud. Ohio's change is no longer theoretical, which puts it at number 5. It can be measured. Demand is rising, crime is declining, and the purchasers who are now arriving are pursuing sustainability rather than hype. And if Ohio feels this powerful at number 5, you may want to prepare yourself, because the states in front of you didn't simply bounce back, they completely changed the game. Maryland is number 4. Prices would already be out of reach if people were truly paying attention, which is why Maryland's transition is so subtle that it almost seems deliberate. While trendy metros are the talk of the nation, Maryland has been getting tighter from the inside out, particularly in areas that have always been stable but are rarely praised. The reality is now catching up with the data. Villages and cities to observe: Bowie, Largo, Prince George's County. The focal point of this change is Prince George's County. Despite being one of the wealthiest and most educated black majority counties in the country, it was framed for years by antiquated stereotypes. The focus and the tendencies in crime are what have changed recently, not the people. While household earnings and the demand for housing have increased, violent crime has decreased in many areas of the county. One longtime homeowner put it plainly: they're calling it up and coming now. We've been up. That line says everything. Bowie has long been a model of black middle-class stability, but now it's becoming a pressure valve for buyers priced out of nearby job centers. With crime remaining relatively low and access to major employment corridors, demand has intensified. A relocating professional told a local outlet, "I didn't want chaos or hype. I wanted predictable. And this felt solid." Predictable doesn't sound sexy until you've lived through volatility. Largo completes the picture. Once overlooked, it's now benefiting from transit access, state investment, and rising interest tied to safety and convenience. As prices soar elsewhere, Largo's appeal is no longer theoretical. It's mathematical. A regional housing analyst noted, when crime drops and incomes rise at the same time, the market notices fast. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Maryland didn't suddenly improve. These communities have been anchored by strong black home ownership, professional networks, and long-term residents for decades. What changed is that the rest of the region got too expensive to ignore them. A Prince George's County resident summed it up with quiet sarcasm. They used to ask why we lived here. Now they ask how soon we're selling. Maryland earns the number 4 spot because this shift is no longer subtle. It's structural. Crime reductions created breathing room. Proximity sealed the deal, and affluence made the transition inevitable. Number 3, Texas. Texas isn't just growing. It's resorting. And that distinction matters because what's happening now isn't about new arrivals randomly picking spots on a map. It's about people following safety, schools, and stability into communities that quietly built those things decades ago. The shift didn't start with hype. It started with numbers, cities, and towns to watch. Dotto, Cedar Hill, Missouri City, South Dallas. Across multiple Texas suburbs, violent crime has declined while housing demand has exploded. Not coincidentally, many of these areas are long-established black middle-class communities with strong home ownership, decent schools, and commuter access to major job centers. In other words, the hard work was already done. Dotto and Cedar Hill have been stable for years. Quietly so. As crime trended downward and surrounding areas got more expensive, buyers started paying attention. A Dotto homeowner laughed in an interview and said, "We used to be invisible." In Houston, Missouri City, which was once disregarded despite its wealth, is now enjoying the benefits of lower suburban crime, easy access to job centers, and a reputation for predictability. As one relocating professional put it plainly, I wasn't chasing trendy. Now people are acting like they just found gold. Quote. A longtime resident told a local reporter, they called it dangerous when we lived here. South Dallas, on the other hand, is where the shift is more raw, more debated, and more revealing. Targeted redevelopment, infrastructure upgrades, and safety improvements have changed the math. Not overnight, not evenly, but enough to draw attention that didn't exist before. Now they call it potential. That word potential usually shows up right before prices do. Here's the part most people miss. Texas didn't suddenly become safer in these places because new money arrived. New money arrived because safety had already improved. Long-standing residents weathered the disinvestment years. Now the reward phase has started and it's attracting eyes, offers, and pressure. A Texas housing analyst summed it up with dry honesty. When crime drops and schools stabilize, capital follows. Texas just does it faster. Texas lands at number 3 because this isn't a local trend, it's systemic. Suburban safety gains plus job growth plus affordability pressure elsewhere equal massive resorting. Number 2, North Carolina. North Carolina didn't just become a relocation magnet by accident. It earned it. While other states chased attention, North Carolina focused on something far more effective. Quiet safety improvements paired with real economic spillover. And once those two line up, the market doesn't ask questions. It moves fast. Cities and towns to watch. Durham, East Raleigh, Greensboro, Winston-Salem. Durham is the headline everyone pretends is new. Historically black, institution-rich, and once written off as risky, Durham has seen declining violent crime alongside soaring home values. Tech spillover from nearby job hubs combined with infrastructure upgrades changed the trajectory. A Durham homeowner told a local outlet, they used to ask if it was safe, now they ask if it's affordable. That shift doesn't happen unless the data moves first. East Raleigh tells a quieter version of the same story. As crime declined in targeted neighborhoods and redevelopment expanded outward, buyers priced out of trendier cores began recalculating. A first-time buyer said it best. I couldn't buy what was popular. I bought what was improving. Greensboro and Winston-Salem add depth to North Carolina's rise. These cities have long had strong black institutional roots, churches, colleges, professional networks that held communities together during lean years. Now, as violent crime trends improve and job access expands, demand is catching up. A Winston-Salem resident joked, "We didn't change. Spreadsheets are unbeatable, and the spreadsheet did." Timing is what sets North Carolina apart. The surge in migratory pressure across the country coincided with the arrival of safety improvements. People were forced to look past the hype due to rising costs elsewhere. And they discovered thriving neighborhoods with steady crime rates, strong infrastructure, and space for expansion. One local economist put it simply. The opportunity closes quickly when safety improves before prices soar. This window is closed. Since this is more than just a recovery, North Carolina takes the second position. It's accelerating. Demand increased, jobs increased, crime decreased, and communities that created stability in the past are now being widely rediscovered. If number 2 looks like this, then number 1 has nothing to do with a pattern. It concerns a move that has already altered the regulations. You can't unsee it after you've seen it. Georgia comes in first. Since what's happening here isn't subtle anymore, Georgia gets the top rank. It is just disregarded selectively. Even as Atlanta receives most of the media attention, the true change is taking place in the background. They held in historically underserved areas that didn't fall apart, didn't run away, and didn't wait for approval to stabilize. That patience is now being rewarded by the numbers. Villages and cities to observe. Riverdale, Lithonia, College Park, and East Point. Violent crime has decreased over the previous 10 years in metro Atlanta suburbs, particularly in those that made early investments in community-based safety initiatives, infrastructure improvements, and redevelopment. These neighborhoods are not new. While the cost of living in Atlanta proper skyrocketed, these long-standing black middle-class neighborhoods remained intact. The best illustration of perception coming up to reality is East Point. Initially overlooked, it's now benefiting from crime reductions, transit access, and proximity to job centers. A seasoned homeowner told a newspaper reporter, people used to lock the doors just driving through. Now they're asking about school zones and property taxes. That's not a vibe shift, that's a behavior shift. College Park tells a similar story, but louder. With safety improvements and redevelopment tied to airport access, it's become a pressure valve for buyers priced out of Atlanta neighborhoods they once assumed were permanent options. One new resident said, "I didn't want Atlanta prices with Atlanta stress." This seems well balanced. Balanced is dangerous because once people find it, they don't leave. Quote. Lithonia and Riverdale round out the picture. These communities didn't suddenly appear on the radar. They were always here, anchored by black home ownership, working professionals, and families who weathered the disinvestment years. Now, as crime stabilizes and infrastructure improves, demand is accelerating. A Riverdale resident put it bluntly. They ignored us when we were affordable. Now they're worried they're late. That line sums up Georgia's entire moment. Here's the truth most relocation videos won't say out loud. Georgia didn't become desirable because new people showed up. New people showed up because these communities became safer first. Safety changed perception. Perception changed demand, and demand is now reshaping the market. A metro area housing analyst said it best. When crime drops and access stays strong, the suburbs absorb pressure fast. Georgia is textbook, and that's why Georgia is number one. This isn't a temporary bump or a speculative trend. It's a structural shift powered by safety data, migration pressure, and communities that quietly did the work long before anyone cared to notice. The people who stayed through the lean years are now watching outsiders discover what never left. And if you've made it this far, here's the real question. Are you watching these shifts from the sidelines or learning how to read them early? If this breakdown made you think differently about where safety, demand, and opportunity are actually moving, make sure you watch more videos on virtual travel by Brian. Like, subscribe, and keep following this channel for honest, data-driven insights into relocation, quality of life, and the quiet trends reshaping America before everyone else catches on.